Hey folks, Mike Johnson here. If it's got wheels and an engine, you're in the right place. On this channel, we dive into car repairs, maintenance tips, and everything you need to keep your ride running smooth. If you're into cars and want to keep learning, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. All right, enough talking. Let's get into it.
Oxygen sensors switch between high and low voltage signals corresponding to oxygen levels in the exhaust system. Although the signal from the front sensor, Sensor 1, changes much more rapidly than that from the rear sensor, Sensor 2, both change over time. When the rear oxygen sensor, mounted on engine dyno 1, doesn't switch quickly enough from one voltage state to the other, the engine computer registers a fault code P0139. What does P0139 mean? Fault code P0139 means slow response of oxygen sensor circuit, bank 1, sensor 2. It indicates that the powertrain control module, PCM, has detected a potential problem with the bank 1 rear oxygen sensor signal. If the oxygen sensor output is slow, the ECM to PCM knows that it cannot provide accurate real-time information. Fault code P0139 indicates that the ECM to PCM has detected a potential problem with the bank 1 rear oxygen sensor signal. The rear sensor is located behind the catalytic converter, and bank 1 refers to the side of the engine where cylinder No. 1 is located. In GM automotive terminology, the term crosscounts refers to the voltage activity of the oxygen sensor as the device alternates between a high voltage state representing a rich mixture and the opposite low voltage state indicating a lean mixture. A sensor must produce a minimum amount of crosscount activity to prove that it is working correctly. The downstream or rear oxygen sensor does not fluctuate from side to side like the front sensor, but the signal from the rear sensor must vary somewhat over time. If the rear sensor signal is slow to change, or doesn't change at all, the PCM may register code P0139. In other words, the ECM to PCM knows how quickly the downstream O2 sensor should change, based on the faster changing upstream sensor. This is a rationality control algorithm. Note, the code P0139 may be defined differently by different vehicle manufacturers. Consult the appropriate repair manual or repair database for the exact code definition. P0139 can be triggered by a number of possible causes. Here is a list of the main possible causes. A defective oxygen sensor. Bank 1's rear oxygen sensor may be defective, failing to produce the appropriate voltage changes. Wiring or connection problems. Wiring problems or faulty connections between the rear oxygen sensor and the PCM may result in slow or incorrect sensor response. Leaks in the exhaust system. Leaks in the exhaust system can influence oxygen measurements, resulting in an incorrect sensor response. Lean or rich operating conditions. If the engine is operating in air-fuel mixture conditions that are too rich or too lean, this may affect the operation of the oxygen sensor. PCM problem. A problem with the powertrain control module, PCM, such as obsolete software requiring updating, can also lead to oxygen sensor reading errors. When code P0139 is recorded, a thorough inspection is recommended to determine the specific cause of the problem. This may involve checking the oxygen sensor, wiring, connections, exhaust system status and, if necessary, updating the PCM software. What are the common symptoms of P0139? The common symptoms associated with fault code P0139 are generally as follows: when the OBDII scanner displays P0453 or another diagnostic code, most people seek professional help to repair their vehicle. However, people with sufficient confidence and experience in automotive repair can diagnose their vehicle and restore the crosscount voltage activity of the bank 1 oxygen sensor and the bank 2 oxygen sensor. Diagnosis of fault code P0139 can be carried out in several stages. The following is a general guide to diagnosing this code. Scan the code. Use an OBDII scanner to read the P0139 code and obtain information about the problem. This can be done using an automotive diagnostic tool available at many auto parts stores or from an automotive professional. Check oxygen sensor. Use a multimeter to test the rear oxygen sensor on bank 1. Check the sensor output voltage and make sure it changes quickly and consistently. If the sensor is faulty, replace it. Check wiring. Inspect wiring between rear oxygen sensor and PCM for damage. Repair or replace damaged sections of wiring. Check for exhaust leaks. Inspect the exhaust system for leaks. Exhaust leaks can cause incorrect oxygen sensor readings. Repair leaks if necessary. Check operating conditions, and make sure the engine is running correctly with the correct air-fuel mixture. Poor or rich operating conditions can influence oxygen sensor readings. Update PCM software. Check the vehicle manufacturer's technical bulletins for PCM software updates that may solve the problem. If you're not comfortable doing these checks yourself, we recommend consulting an automotive professional for further diagnosis and appropriate repairs. Using an analysis tool recording utility. If you have DIY experience, you can also try the diagnostic method below. A fault code P0139 indicates a problem with the downstream O2 sensor, which is lazier than the upstream sensor in a system where the catalytic converter stores oxygen correctly. If you think you have a problem with the performance of the upstream O2 sensor and are considering replacing it, you can observe the sensor on the scan tool data screen while accelerating the engine to around 1200 RPM. You should see about 3 Richter-lean switches per second, with a voltage range of at least 0.2 to 0.8 volts, if not slightly higher. The downstream sensor will also switch from rich to lean, but to a lesser extent and less quickly. The downstream sensor also has to switch quickly whenever it needs to, and the ECM monitors both sensors very carefully to determine if either is responding to fuel trim adjustments at a less than optimal rate. Does P0139 affect engine performance? In general, fault code P0139, which is related to a slow response problem in the downstream oxygen sensor, sensor 2, of bank 1, does not usually significantly affect immediate engine performance. Oxygen sensors are primarily responsible for monitoring the air-fuel mixture and providing information to the engine management system to adjust the fuel injected accordingly. However, while P0139 may not cause noticeable symptoms such as engine misfire or loss of power, it can have long-term implications. If the problem persists unresolved, it can lead to reduced catalyst efficiency and emissions problems. In addition, if other codes related to oxygen sensors or the air-fuel mixture are present, they could have an impact on engine performance and efficiency. In summary, although P0139 itself may not cause immediate performance problems, it's advisable to diagnose and resolve the problem quickly to keep the motor running smoothly and avoid further complications. How to repair P0139? Once you've diagnosed the P0139 fault code, the repair will depend on the specific cause of the problem. Here are some general steps you can take to resolve P0139, oxygen sensor replacement. If the diagnosis indicates that the reoxygen sensor in bank 1 is faulty, replace it with a new unit of a quality compatible with your vehicle. Checking and repairing electrical connections. Ensure that the electrical connections and wires between the reoxygen sensor and the PCM are in good condition. Repair or replace defective components if necessary. Check operating conditions. Check that the engine is running correctly with the correct air-fuel mixture. If necessary, carry out repairs to correct poor or rich operating conditions. Update PCM software. Check the vehicle manufacturer's technical bulletins for PCM software updates that may solve the problem. Before undertaking any repairs, consult online resources, vehicle-specific repair guides and your owner's manual. If you don't feel comfortable doing the repairs yourself, we recommend that you call in a qualified mechanic to carry out the necessary repairs. Codes associated with fault code P0139. Fault code P0139 is specific to a slow response problem with the oxygen sensor downstream of bank 1. However, there may be other associated codes, particularly if the problem affects other vehicle components or systems. Here are some possible codes that could be associated with P0139. The fault code P0139 indicates a problem with the downstream O2 sensor, which is lazier than the upstream sensor in a system where the catalytic converter stores oxygen correctly. P0140, oxygen sensor, O2, downstream, circuit failure, bank 1, sensor 2. Similar to P0139, this code indicates a problem with the oxygen sensor downstream of bank 1, but may focus on a failure rather than a slow response. P0174, air-fuel mixture 2 lean, bench 2. Similar to P0171, this code relates to engine bank 2. P0420, catalytic converter, downstream efficiency below threshold. A problem with the downstream oxygen sensor may be affecting catalytic Converter performance, triggering this code. These codes may vary depending on the vehicle manufacturer. When a P0139 fault code is detected, it is advisable to diagnose and resolve the problem quickly, as it may affect other exhaust system and engine components. A thorough diagnosis with an OBDI scanner can help identify all relevant codes for a complete repair. Conclusion. In conclusion, fault code P0139 indicates a slow response from the downstream oxygen sensor, Lambda sensor 2, on the engine AS first bank. This sensor is responsible for measuring the oxygen content of exhaust gases after the catalytic converter. Slow response can be caused by various problems, such as a faulty sensor, wiring problems, leaks in the exhaust system, or inappropriate engine operating conditions. To solve this problem, a thorough diagnostic is recommended, including checking the sensor, inspecting the wiring, looking for leaks, checking the operating conditions, and updating the PCM software if necessary. If you're not comfortable doing these checks yourself, it's advisable to consult an automotive professional for appropriate technical assistance. Prompt resolution of this problem is essential to keep the engine running smoothly and avoid further complications, including emissions problems. Code P0139. In conclusion, fault code P0139 indicates a slow response from Lambda sensor 2, line 1, which can lead to decreased engine performance and increased emissions. It's essential to address this issue promptly to ensure your vehicle runs efficiently and meets environmental standards. Regular maintenance and timely diagnostics can help prevent such problems from escalating. If you suspect this fault in your vehicle, consider consulting a professional mechanic for a thorough inspection and necessary repairs. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more informative content on automotive diagnostics.